Back to a couple of big meetings we're keeping our eye on tonight, both on trade and tariffs. Watching it all, Lori Turnball, political science professor in the Faculty of Management, Dalhousie University. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Let's start in Boston. We're pretty used to Atlantic and New England leaders meeting, but this expanded to include New York and Ontario. Not a whole lot came of this other than a mutual declaration that tariffs hurt. But was that the point of it anyway, to show sort of a united front?
I think so. I think there are potentially a few points of it. I mean, the governors who were in attendance were, for the most part, Democrat. I think there was one Republican. And so the idea that this meeting was going to change Donald Trump's mind, or, the idea that there's some kind of pipeline between him and this meeting, pun intended, I guess. No, not that. However, the relationship between Canadians and Americans, as we know, is very longstanding. And in our part of the country, the trade, the commerce, the business, but also the tourism, the friendships that go across that border and have become part of our lives. These things were really disrupted by Trump's decision to declare a tariff war on us. And honestly, even today at the G7, when he's talking about, he thinks that Canada and the Americans can reach a deal, he still says he's a tariff guy. And so I think that I can understand from the political leaders on the eastern side, they want to continue to reinforce the ties that bind there and to see what can be done, even though the tariffs are still in place.
Yeah, I mean, north of the border, I think we have the most to lose in a trade war like this. But listening to those governors, I mean, clearly they're feeling it, and they're seem every bit as worried as Canadian politicians.
I think that's right, because as time has gone on, I think a lot of people were hoping, and I suspect probably a lot of people on the American side too, that Trump would let up on this and that this would be, some sort of temper tantrum on his part, and eventually he would claw this back and things would go back to normal. But now that hasn't happened. And I think for a lot of people in Canada, they're not going to travel to the US again until they can see this tariff policy be rolled back up, right? Like, some people might never go back. Some people may kind of change their position over time, and other people are going to not return to places in the US that they love, even though they love the vacation, they love the people, they love the things to do. They're not going to do it if we're still in this space where Trump is against us like this. And so that's hurting relationships, that's hurting the tourism circumstances in the US, and they're feeling that, especially because now this is the time of the year where a lot of Canadians would have started their travel down to New England, or they're planning it, and those bookings are not being made.
Yeah, and like us here in the Maritimes, you've only got, 10 or 12 weeks to make your money in the summer. Can the governors pressure Congress to any great level of success? Because I think that's what they're going to hope to come out of this meeting, by saying we're going to, go down to Washington and, make this known to Congress.
That's what politics is all about, right? It's the pressure, it's the building a consensus, it's the trying to get people to see the value of what you're saying and be persuaded by the costs associated with this. I mean, it's possible. We have to think at some point, when Trump is talking about how much money they're making on the tariffs, it's like, yeah, you're collecting that money from Americans, like, and this is at a cost. Right? Like at some point, the economic reality of the measures he's taking have to come back to roost here. Right? And so I would think, hopefully at some point, regardless of whether you're Republican or Democrat or neither, that the arguments around the economics of it alone will start to resonate.
Right. Okay, well, let's jump out to Alberta, where the G7, of course, is taking place. And Donald Trump didn't utter 51st state in his initial meeting with the Prime Minister. I don't know, small victory, perhaps?
Yeah, we'll take it where we can get it, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, he's wearing his Canada-US pin, and he's really the focal point, I guess, of the meeting, even though everybody's trying to make him less so. I think Carney has worked really hard to try to make it less possible for Trump to suck the air out of the room by inviting lots of people and engaging conversations with other partners, potential partners, talking about different ways in which we will move forward, even as the U.S. is in this, in this position of not wanting to be the predictable partner and the reliable partner that it has been so far. It looks like Trump is open to a deal, but he doesn't really say what form that would take, and he seems not to be backing away from the tariffs.
No, that's right. To your point, and you mentioned it a little earlier, he said, yeah, he thinks we can get a deal done, but hey, I'm first and foremost a tariff guy, so the one hand giveth, the other take it away, I guess. Yeah, back to that point. Is this could easily descend into a 6-against-1 event? That's really Carney's line to walk, I guess, is it?
Right. And I think to his credit, Carney has tried to negotiate and manage the relationship with Trump by always giving Trump space to show up like an adult if he wants to. Carney has never taken a hard line against in a way that would make Trump feel isolated and feel like there's no point in trying to do a deal. I think Carney's tried not to hurt Trump's feelings in some ways, and Trump's feelings are a very important part of how he does political business. But I think at this point, Carney is hosting this meeting in the hopes of really exploring partnerships that will make us less dependent on the U.S. We already know that Canada is going to sign on to this Rearm Europe deal, and that's going to be huge for us. That's going to be, there's a significant amount of money, like 800 billion euros, going to be put into this between now and 2030. And so, I mean, with that kind of partnership, even doesn't mean that we don't need the U.S. Doesn't mean we don't want them. It just means. Sure. We're showing up differently here if this goes through.
Typically with these events, the work is done ahead of time. Basically everything's worked out, and then you'll see the 7 leaders sign agreements at the end. Do you think we'll get that type of signing in the case this year?
We won't get the joint communique. We won't get I'm sure we'll get some version of a family picture, but I don't think we're going to get the one big happy family result at the end where everybody signs on and says we're going to do all these great things together. I think it's going to be a series of smaller agreements between specific countries, between specific partners, so that they're not giving Trump that opportunity to spoil it all at the end, right? Like he did the last time we hosted, when at the end he says, "Oh no, I'm not going to sign onto this after all," and then he throws a tantrum and calls Trudeau a bunch of names on his way to his flight. Like, I think Carney needs this to work. He needs this G7 to be productive, and I don't think he wants to give Trump the opportunity to overturn it.
Right. Lori Turnball, we appreciate your insight. Thank you for taking some time for us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a break. Lots of the show still on the other side. Stay with us.